We have a crisis in the world, tremendous crisis, and also crisis in our consciousness, in us. I see the urgency of change, radical revolution, mutation in the mind. I see it. It is necessary. There is complete quietness of the mind, and that which is silent has vast space. Only then that which is nameless comes into being.
This is Urgency of Change, the Krishnamurti Podcast. You can only be spiritual when you destroy the social structure of your own being, which is the world in which you live, the world of ambition, greed, envy, and seeking power. Hello and welcome to episode 286 of Urgency of Change. The Krishnamurti Podcast features carefully selected extracts from Krishnamurti's recorded talks. Each episode highlights his different approaches to universal and timeless themes that affect our everyday lives, the state of the world, and the future of humanity. This episode's theme is the structure of society. Upcoming themes are discovery, suffering, and communication. This is a podcast from Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. Please visit our website at kfoundation.org, where you can find a popular collection of quotes, a variety of featured articles, along with a wide selection of curated material in the index of topics. This index allows easy access to book, audio and video extracts. Our online store stocks the best of Krishnamurti's books and ships worldwide. We also offer free downloads, including a selection of booklets. You can also find our regular Krishnamurti quotes and videos on Instagram, TikTok and Facebook at Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review or rating on your podcast app. This episode on the structure of society has two sections. This first extract is from Krishnamurti's first talk in Bombay 1962 and is titled The Nature of Society.
It must be fairly obvious to most people that there must be throughout the world a tremendous revolution. A revolution not of words, not of ideas, not the exchange of belief or dogma, but a change, a total mutation in self. Because the world, which is our world, the world we live in, the world that you and I inhabit, the companions, the relationships, the work, the ideas and the beliefs and the dogmas that we hold, that they have produced a monstrous world, a world of conflict, misery, and perpetual sorrow. There is no denying it. Though every one of us is aware of this extraordinary state of things in the world, we accept it as a normal condition. We put up with it day after day, and never inquire into the necessity, the urgency of a revolution that neither economic nor political, but much more fundamental. And it is with that we are going to discuss, we're going to talk together, explore together during these 3 weeks. But to explore, there must be freedom. To explore really, deeply, lastingly, you must leave your books, your ideas, your traditions. Because without freedom, no exploration is possible. No inquiry is ever possible when the mind is tethered to any kind of dogma, to a tradition, to a belief. And so, the difficulty with most of us will lie, not that we are not capable of inquiry, not that we are capable of investigation, but we are apparently totally incapable of letting things go, putting things aside. And therefore, with a fresh mind, with a young mind, with an innocent mind, to look at the world and all the appalling things that are taking place in it. So, to investigate, to inquire into all the questions that touch our lives, death, birth, marriage, sex, relationship. If there is or if there is not something beyond the measure of the mind, what is virtue? We're going to inquire into everything, question everything, tear down the house that man has built through centuries to find out what is true. And that requires freedom to pull down. Because it's only when you can destroy completely everything that we have held sacred or right or virtuous, that you can find out what is true. And that requires freedom. A mind capable of inquiry, a mind which is serious. I mean by seriousness a quality of pursuing a thought to the very end. A questioning that is not afraid to face the consequences. Otherwise there is no inquiry. Otherwise there is no investigation. We remain merely on the surface and play with words, with ideas. And if one has observed sufficiently with the things that are happening, not only mechanically, technically, but also in our relationships between people. When you observe that progress throughout the world is denying freedom, and when you observe the strength of society, in which the individual has completely ceased to be, and when you observe how nationalities are dividing themselves more and more, especially in this unfortunate country, some kind of deep revolt must come about. And it seems to me the first thing to inquire is society. Inquire into what is the structure and what is the nature of society. Because we are social beings. You cannot live by yourself. Even if you withdraw into the Himalayas or become a hermit or a sannyasi, you cannot live by yourself. You are in relationship with another. Relationship with another creates the structure which we call society. That structure controls relationship. That is, you and I have a relationship. We are in communion with each other. In that communion, in that relationship, we build a structure called society. That society controls our minds, shapes our hearts, shapes our actions. Whether you live in a communist society or in Hindu society or a Christian world, society with its structure shapes the mind of every human being, consciously or unconsciously. The culture in which we live, the traditions, the religions, the politics, the education, all that, the past as well as the present, shapes our thought. And to bring about a complete revolution, and there must be a revolution, a crisis in consciousness. You must question the structure of society. And if I may add here, words lose their significance if we merely use them as symbols and not go beyond words. Most of us are slave to words, like the word Hindu, Parsi, Muslim. We are slave to words. And as long as words remain important, we cannot go beyond words. When we talk about society, culture, structure, they're merely words. And to go beyond these words, one must see oneself in relation to the structure, oneself in relation to what is actually taking place in the world, and what is actually taking place in your own life. Words are merely a means to communicate. But if we stop merely at words, all communication ceases except verbal communication. And we are not dealing with ideas. We are not dealing with theories or beliefs or dogmas. We are concerned with bringing about a different action, a different mind, a different entity as a human being. And to go into that really profoundly, we must not be slave to words. And this is very important to understand right from the very beginning. Because the word is never the thing. The word bird is not the bird. They're two different things. But most of us are satisfied with the word and not with seeing the bird. We are satisfied to call ourselves the individual and the society and the structure of society. But is there an individual at all? Because we are the result of environmental influence. We are the society. We are the result of that structure which we call society. It's only when you completely break away from society, totally, then you are an individual. But you are not now an individual at all. You are the result of your environmental influence. You have been brought up as a Hindu, as a Buddhist, as what you will. You are the result of influence given in a particular society. So we must be greatly aware of the influence of word. And discover for ourselves to what extent, to what depth we are slaves to words. Because these meetings, these gatherings, are not entertainments. They are not propaganda. They are not exchange of ideas. But what we are concerned essentially and deeply with bringing about a radical religious revolution. And that requires tremendous investigation into oneself. That requires a questioning of everything that man has built. Every attitude, every value, every tradition, every relationship. And we are going to do that. We're not going to leave one stone unturned. There is nothing holy, nothing sacred. Therefore, to investigate, you need a very sharp, clear, precise mind. Not a mind befogged with ideas, with words, with sentiment. And to think very clearly, there must be freedom. Otherwise you cannot think freely. If you are a Hindu or a Parsi or what you will, if that is the basis of your thought, or from that you begin to think, it is absolutely impossible to think, because you are not free. So the first essential necessity of inquiry is freedom. Because then you can begin to question. There are two ways to question. One, to question with a motive. And therefore, try to find an answer to the question. Or, which is the other, to question without motive. And therefore seeking no answer. Please, this is really important if you would follow what is being said, to understand this difference between these two questionings. Most of us do question, and our questioning is a reaction. I don't like something and I question it and reject it, or modify my questioning according to the urge, the demand of what I want. So that kind of questioning has a motive behind it. And that questioning is a reaction. We know what a reaction is. I don't like something and I revolt against it. And that revolt is merely a reaction, a response to something which I don't like. But there is a different questioning, which is without motive, which is not a reaction, which is to observe, question the thing which is a fact. I do not like to talk in examples, because examples don't get very far. Similes are dangerous things. But in order to explain the difference between the two kinds of questionings, which is the questioning which seeks an answer and the questioning that has no answer but merely questions. You take the fact of what is happening in this country. Nationalism and caste prejudice is spreading. That's a fact. The worship of the flag, which is an abomination, because it separates people. It brings wars. This worship of the flag with its nationalistic spirit is a fact of what is actually going on. Now, you can question it either to find out why it is happening, the truth of it, without a motive, and therefore without defense, without attacking it, but merely question it sharply to find out. Or you question it having accepted nationalism, which is accepting the division as the caste, as the class, as a group. And when you so question, there is a motive behind it. And that questioning does not reveal the truth of that matter. So there are two ways to question the whole process of living. One with a motive which seeks a result, which is a response, which is a reaction, and therefore will not find the truth of that questioning. And there is the other, which is to question without motive, without seeking an answer. And that's what we are going to do. Because the moment you seek an answer, it will invariably be a conclusion of words, but not of facts. So, we are going to question the whole structure of society. We are going to question the whole relationship of man and man. His relationship with ideas, with his conceptual existence, his abstractions, his everyday conduct. Because out of that questioning, we shall discover ourselves what we actually are. Because without knowing yourself, you cannot go very far. Without knowing what you are, consciously, unconsciously, what you think, what you feel, every movement of idea, every feeling, without uncovering that, without discovering the processes, the motives, the impulses, the compulsions, the frustrations, the failures, the hopeless loneliness, despairs, anxieties, guilt, without uncovering, understanding all that, you cannot go very far. That is the foundation. And that requires freedom. So freedom is not at the end, but at the beginning. So as to capable of looking at yourself actually as you are. What you are is your relationship. And that relationship is the structure of society. There must be complete change in our relationship. Because all relationship is action. Relationship is action. And our relationship is not based on idea. Your relationship with your wife is not an idea. But your relationship with your neighbor, with your country, with your idea, with your gods is an idea. Your relationship with your wife, with your children, may be based on idea, what you want it to be. But the fact is, you are actually related to the person through your feeling, through your sexual protective demands. So, society is relationship. And that social structure, as it is now, is based on ambition, greed, envy, seeking power, position, prestige, and all this thing that man has set up as extraordinarily significant in life. That is the actual fact. Not your gods, not the Gita, not your gurus, not your saints and saviors, but the daily life in which you are, which is your ambition, your greed, your envy, your pursuit of power and wealth and position. That's what you want. And without altering that radically, breaking down the whole system, you cannot have a religious revolution. Because that's the only revolution that has significance. Because every other revolution has failed. the French and the communist revolution. It has completely, totally failed, because those revolutions are reactionary revolutions. They are reaction against what is. Communist revolution is the reaction to capitalism, the reaction. And therefore, when you react, it produces the same pattern in a different form. And religious revolution is not concerned with reaction at all. It's concerned with dealing with the fact and destroying that fact. That is, being aware that our relationship, that our social structure is based on this extraordinary sense of value, of ambition, greed, envy, and to destroy that completely in ourselves, totally, to eradicate it wholly. That is the beginning of religious revolution. Not the pursuit of an idea which you call God. Because you say, without laying the foundation, how can you go far? How can you find out if there is something beyond the words, beyond the visions, beyond the conditioning of man? Chalices, these things which we call morality of society, which admits that you can be ambitious, envious, greedy, powerful, and all the rest of it, which it calls moral, and which you pursue. And how can you, with that morality, with that virtue, find something which is beyond all virtue, which is beyond all time? And there is something beyond all time. There is something immeasurable, timeless. But to find that, to uncover that, you must lay the foundation. And to lay the foundation, you must shatter society. I mean by society not the outward structure, not blowing up buildings, not discarding clothes and putting on sannyasi robes, or becoming a hermit. That doesn't break down the society. When I talk about society, I mean the psychological structure, the inward structure of our minds, of our brain, the psychological processes of our thinking. Those needs to be completely destroyed to find out, to create a new mind. And you need a new mind. Because if you observe what is taking place in the world, you will see more and more that freedom is being denied by the politicians, by progress, by organized religions, by the mechanical, technical processes. More and more, the computers are taking over the function of man, and they're quite right to do that. Virtue is being altered by chemicals. By taking certain chemicals, you can be free of anger, irritability, vanity. You can make your mind very quiet. By taking a tranquilizer, you can become very, very peaceful. So your virtue is being changed by chemicals. You don't have to go through all the tyranny of discipline in order to be virtuous. All that is going in the world, all that has disappeared. And so to bring about a new world, not chemical air, not industrial air, not political air, but if I may use that word, so hackneyed, so spoiled, so destroyed by the politicians, by the religious people, the word spiritual. And you cannot be spiritual if you belong to any religion, to any nationality. If you call yourself a Hindu, a Buddhist, a Muslim or a Christian, you can never be spiritual. You can only be spiritual when you destroy this social structure of your being, which is the world in which you live, the world of ambition, greed, envy, seeking power. That is reality and nothing else. Because that's what we all want. From the highest politician to the lowest person in the street. From the biggest saint to the daily worshipper. That's what everybody wants. And without breaking that, do what you will, you will have no love. You will be no near happiness. You will always have conflict, misery. So, as I said, we are going to inquire into the structure of society. The structure of society is brought about through thought. The structure of society has resulted in the brain which we now have. The brain, which is now used to acquire, to compete, to become powerful, to gain money crookedly or rightly. The brain is the result of our society in which we live. The culture in which we have been brought up, the religious prejudices, dogmas, beliefs, tradition, all that is the brain, which is the result of the past.
The second and final extract in this episode is from the first talk in London 1962 and is titled Destroying the Psychological Structure of Society.
To go very deeply into oneself, one must obviously be free of ambition, of competition, of envy, greed. And that's a very difficult thing to do, to be free of envy, greed, and ambition. Because that is the social structure, the psychological structure on which we are built. We are that. To live in a world that is made up of acquisitiveness, ambition, competition, and be entirely free of it, and yet be not destroyed by the world. That's really the problem. The more one observes, the more one is aware of the things that are going on in the world. There is greater and greater information, knowledge. You can go to the moon. Computers are taking over. They are more and more becoming almost automatic. We go to the office every day of our life, thoroughly bored with what we are doing. And so we seek various forms of escape from that boredom. And religion is a marvelous escape. Or various forms of sensations. Taking drugs to get more, to see more. All this is going on throughout the world. And inwardly, we are in perpetual conflict. Not only within ourselves, but with everybody. All our relationship is based on conflict. On possession, acquisitiveness, and on force. And I don't see how, when the mind is caught in such conflict, such despair, such anxiety, as most of us are, how one can go very far. But one has to go very far. One has to destroy all the structure, psychological structure which society is in us. Completely destroy it. And that is really the crux of the whole existence. Because we do lead a most superficial life. And we try to go very deeply by reading, by acquiring knowledge, by getting more and more information, always on the surface. All knowledge, all information is on the surface. So the question really is, how to live in this world without conflict, without those things that bring about conflict, not only outwardly but inwardly, especially inwardly. Because the inward conflict dictates the outer conflicts. Only a mind that is really free from all conflict, which means from all psychological problems, of any kind. It's only such a mind that can be free and to find out if there is something beyond all thought, beyond all feeling. So, our problem, essentially as far as one can see, not how to acquire more money, not how to stop the atom bomb, or to join the common market or not. Those are not real deep problems. Those will be shaped and controlled by historical events, by innumerable pressures of various sovereign governments and societies and religions. But if one is capable of abstracting oneself from all that, not withdrawing, not becoming a monk or a nun, but actually understanding its whole significance, and to find out for oneself if it is at all possible to be completely free from the psychological structure of society, to be free of ambition. And it's a very difficult thing to be free from ambition. Ambition implies the more. The more implies time. Time means arriving, achieving. To deny time is to be free of ambition. Not the chronological time that you can't deny, then you will lose your bus. But the psychological tribe which we have created for ourselves in order to become something inwardly, to deny that, which means really to die to tomorrow. Without despair. You know, the clever people, the intellectuals have examined all this, the outward processes. They have examined the churches, the beliefs, the dogmas, the saviors. And after examining, they are in despair. And out of despair, they have a philosophy to accept the immediate and to live as completely in the immediate as possible, in the now. I don't mean that at all. That any materialistic, any shallow person can do. That's very easy. Not to think about tomorrow, but live completely today. That's what most of us do, unfortunately. We don't have to be very clever. We live for today. That today is extended into many tomorrows. I don't mean that at all. I mean to die, to deny ambition totally, completely, and immediately. That is to die psychologically to the social structure. So that your mind is never caught in time, in ambition to be something or not to be. You know, death is a marvelous thing. And to understand death requires a great deal of insight. Which we'll discuss perhaps in one of these talks. But to die naturally to ambition without effort, to deny envy, which implies comparison, in which there is success. The more you have, more and I have less. You have more knowledge and I'm ignorant. To end this comparison, totally, completely. And one can only die totally to that kind of envy, ambition, competition, only when you are capable of looking at it completely without any distortion. And there is distortion if there is motive. When you want to deny ambition in order to be something else, you are still ambitious. That's not denial at all. When you renounce with a motive, it is not renunciation. And most renunciations have behind them this motive: to be, to achieve, to arrive, to find. So it seems to me we are becoming more and more clever, becoming more and more informative. Words, ideas, theories, knowledge fill our minds. We are brought upon them. And there is very little empty space from which there can be something can be seen clearly. Because it's only the empty mind, not the dull mind, not the mind that's crammed with a lot of information and knowledge, not the mind that's incessantly active, seeking, groping, asking, demanding, but a mind that is empty. It doesn't mean blank. That's an extraordinarily difficult thing to have, to be aware of an empty mind. Because it's only in that emptiness there is understanding. It's only in that emptiness there is creation. But to come to that, one has to deny the whole social structure, the psychological social structure. Of power, position, prestige, fame. It's comparatively easy for older people, at least superficially, to deny power, position. or not to be ambitious. But still it's very superficial, those denials. That's why it's very important to understand the unconscious. To understand it, not to examine it. You can't examine with a positive mind, with an educated mind, with a mind that is analyzing something of which you don't know, which is hidden. If you examine that which is hidden, the unconscious, by the conscious process of analysis, then you are bound to create conflict. Do please understand this. It's not very difficult. All our approach to any deep problem is a positive approach. That is, we want to get at it, we want to control it, we want to acquire it, we analyze it, or we pursue a particular system in order to understand it. You can't understand something of which you don't know with what you already know. You must approach it with empty hands. Not dictate what it should be. And to have empty hands is one of the most difficult things. Because our minds are so full of things that we have already known. We are so burdened with our memories. And every thought is a response of those memories. And with thought we approach that which is not positive, which is hidden, the unconscious. Now, if you could merely listen to what is being said, not how to approach the unconscious with empty hands, but to approach, but if you could listen to what is being said without any idea, then you will see that you can approach the unconscious, which has such power, such extraordinary drive, compulsion, without creating contradiction and therefore effort. That is, sirs, there must be, and there is, you don't have to accept my word for it, and I hope you don't. Then I become your authority, which will be most ugly thing you can do. There is the unknowable, something far beyond all thought, all mind. There is. But you cannot possibly approach it with all the knowledge, with all the memory, the scratches of life, the experiences, the weight of fear, anxiety, guilt. And you cannot get rid of all that by any effort whatsoever. You can only be free of it by listening to every thought and to every feeling. Listen. Not trying to interpret what your thought is, what you're listening to, what your feeling is. Just to listen. Just to observe. To be attentive out of emptiness. Then one can live in this world with all its travail, with all its ugliness, with all its brutality and terrible things that are happening. Untouched. You can function in this world without being caught in status. To function as a clerk, as a bus driver, bank manager, what you will, merely to function. But the moment you bring in all the psychological factors involved in that functioning, with its ambitions, with its authority, with its position, power, then you can't live in this world without everlasting sorrow. So most of us know all this, really. One doesn't need to listen to a talk at all of this kind. We all know this. That's a terrible, brutal, ugly world. Where everybody, every church, every religion is trying to shape thought. Where the welfare states are making us more and more comfortable, dull, stupid. Because we have used conflict as a means of becoming bright. We know all this. But inwardly we are not changed at all. We are carrying on as we have been for centuries. Inwardly we are just the same. Afraid, anxious, guilty, seeking power, seeking sex. Everything is what we are. Animalistic things we're still carrying on, which is functioning psychologically in the structure of society. The question is how to break it totally, how to destroy it completely and be out of it, without becoming insane, without becoming a monk or a nun or a hermit. And that can only be done immediately. There is no time in which to do it in. You either do it immediately or never. I'm using the word never not in the religious sense of hell. That if you can't understand it now, that is, if you cannot pay complete attention, now, will you be able to pay attention to tomorrow? Even there, if you do pay attention to tomorrow, you have still to pay attention then, completely. So, attention is not matter of time. Understanding is not a matter of gradual growth till you arrive to understand, at understanding. So that's why it's very important to know how to listen, or how to see things as they are, to see a fact without opinion, without judgment, without condemnation, just to see a fact, to see the fact that one is ambitious. Not whether it's right or wrong, what will happen to you if you are not ambitious, and so on, so on, so on. Just to see the fact. Then you will see that if you can so look at the fact without distorting the fact, you will find out that very observation of that fact not only removes the observer and the observed, which creates conflict, but the seeing of the fact releases a great deal of energy. And you need energy. Not the energy derived through conflict. That is a destructive energy. But the energy that comes into being when you see something totally, completely, when you see a fact that you are sexual, that you are ambitious, that you are envious, that you are afraid, just to see that fact. And you cannot see the fact if you are caught in words. And words are ideas. Ideas are thought. So to look at a fact, there must be that empty space in the mind that looks. Please don't misunderstand the word empty. You know, our minds are never quiet. They're always chattering. They're always theorizing, building and destroying, and picking up again. There's never a moment when it's quiet. And when it is quiet, there is no space. There is no time. When the mind is very still, all time and space disappear. There is no tomorrow or the next second. And that stillness of mind is total attention. And that attention is all virtue. That is real virtue. There is no other virtue, no other morality. Every other form of virtue and morality is the structure, is brought about by the mind, by psychological ambition, envy and all the rest of it. So, to see the fact as it is the beginning and the ending of every problem. And it's only when the mind is really completely empty of every problem, and it can be so empty, when it is denied every problem, when it doesn't give, when the mind no longer gives soil to any problem, then you will find, if one has gone so deeply, that there is something far beyond, something which mind cannot measure, which no religion can capture. And it is essential, living in this world, in this chaotic, confused world, to have such a mind that is capable of looking at everything clearly, sanely, seeing every fact as it is. And it is only such a mind that is quiet, that is still. Only to such a mind the immense can come into being.